Welcome to the Karuna Life, the podcast where we explore the connection between spirituality and everyday life. I'm your host, Gina Kitzmiller. I'm a longtime spiritual seeker, professional intuitive, and Reiki master teacher. Join me as we dive into topics like living a heart-centered life, connecting with our intuition, and unleashing our own power. Through interviews with professionals and personal storytellers, we'll discuss the metaphysical world, spirit guides, and finding magic in the ordinary. Get ready to embrace your inner mystic and explore the realms of the unseen. Hi, everyone. I'm Gina Kitzmiller and your host of the Karuna Life Podcast. So today we are going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is oracle cards. They're also sometimes called divination cards. And what we're going to talk about today is how to purchase them, how to use them, and to really get the most out of this really practical, unique, and yet very powerful tool to connect in with not only our higher self, but with our spirit guides and angels. They're often a first step that people take in having communication with their spirit guides. So it's a really important tool, and yet it's one that's so easy to use every day. So let's start. So divination cards. So some of you, if you've had a session with me, may have seen at the end of the session, I do a card pull to kind of summarize the session. And I've been using divination cards for years now, and I started using them with clients. And what really struck me was how accurate they are. The messages that clients often receive at the end of the session from a divination card pull just really helped pull the session together. It also gave them something almost tangible to take with them. So I am a huge fan of divination cards. I joke that I have a slight addiction to them because as I look around my office right now, I have probably 8 to 10 decks that are just in this room alone. So I will caution you that once you get into them, you may start to get kind of the itch to get more and more decks because each one is really unique and brings kind of a different vibration and energy into that reading. So I have some decks that I love to use with clients. And I have some that are just for personal use that I keep separate that are just ones that I feel are kind of meant for me. And so you might have some that you do both if you're a practitioner, or you might have ones that are simply one for personal use, and you might have one that you like to get together with friends and use with them. So as with anything, you want to honor your own intuition. So how to purchase divination cards. So if you want to go in person and kind of see them physically, the best place to go would be a metaphysical store or a crystal store will often carry divination cards. Some of the stores will even have one open so that you can see the different cards in the deck. If you are looking online, you can find them anywhere from Etsy to Amazon, carries a ton of cards. So what I would suggest you do, especially if you're looking online, is to take a look at the cards. You want to get a feel for the artwork on them, but what you're really looking at is the vibration. Do the cards appeal to you? Is it something that kind of draws you in? Because everything is resonance. So you want to get a card deck, not simply to get a card deck, although you can do that. But ideally, you want the card deck to speak to you. You want it to be something that you're kind of leaning into rather than away from. Now, out of all the decks that I've gotten over the years, I think there's really only been maybe one, if not two, that just didn't resonate with me. Normally, I usually just love the deck. And in those cases, I think I gifted one to a friend, and then the other one I might have even donated because I just felt these aren't supposed to be my cards, and I'm going to send them back out to find who they're meant to be with. Kind of like crystals in a way. So once you get your cards home, if you intend to use them as a divination tool, it's going to be really important to set that intention. And how do you do that with oracle cards? Well, once you unwrap them, I'd suggest you open them up, spread out the cards, and take a minute and look at some of the artwork on them. Look at some of maybe the messages in them, see if anything kind of jumps out at you, but you're just getting a feel for the cards. Then you may just bring the cards back together. And you can clear them in a number of ways. So you can use sage or Palo Santo smoke to clear them. And you're really kind of just clearing any energies or vibrations that they may have picked up in production and getting transported to where you purchased them before they made it into your home. I typically like to use a Himalayan crystal singing bowl. And so I'll place the cards in there and I'll play the bowl for a minute or two just to clear them, setting that intention, raising them to the highest vibration. And then I'll bring the cards, usually holding them in my hands, or I bring them to my heart center. And I do this to allow my heart energy into the cards. And silently set an intention for these cards to be used as a divination tool for my highest good and for the highest good of clients. And I kind of usually state something like, I welcome my guides, angels, helpers, and higher self and the divine to speak to me through these cards. So intention is really important in anything that we do. So you're setting the intention for these cards. So when we keep our cards as well, they say that it's important because if you're using them as a true divination tool, you want to be respectful of the cards. So sometimes I've seen it recommended that you might wrap a deck in like a silk scarf, something that kind of placing it in a specific box or even just on a specific shelf is fine. When you have as many decks as I do, I can't have each one wrapped in a silk scarf and in a special place. But I do try to be aware of where I place them and I keep them on specific shelves. Sometimes I will place crystals either in the box or around them to keep the vibration high. And if I haven't used a deck in a long time and I feel like maybe that energy has started to dissipate a little bit, I simply go back and redo the clearing and placing it back in a singing bowl to raise the vibration and again, reinstate my intentions. So when you have your practice and now you're ready to use the deck, there's a few different ways that you can do it, and everyone has their own unique way. So play with it and you'll kind of see what works for you. What I typically do is I will set my intention or place the question that I have in my heart. I will set a protection around me because I think protection is always important. And I always ask that anything that happens must be for my highest and greatest good. So I just want to make sure that the information that I'm getting is for my highest good and that it's in that highest frequency of unconditional love. So I like to shuffle the cards. So I'll be thinking about my intention and I'll start shuffling the cards. And this is just my practice. What usually happens is as I'm shuffling, one of two things. Sometimes a card can just drop out, in which case I usually take that as the sign of that's the card I'm supposed to look at. If I'm not sure, I might even set it aside and then continue to shuffle. But typically what happens is I'm shuffling, and then at some point I just get that strong nudge of top card and I stop shuffling and I flip the top card. For other people, sometimes they like to spread the cards out in front of them and then kind of run their hands over the cards and then choose a card in that way. And that can work really well. So you might want to play with it and see kind of, how that works for you. And the funny story that I have about the divination cards is that one time I, asked my guides the question, I shuffled the cards and I picked a card. And I can't even remember what it said, but the message was just kind of a typical message. Maybe it was about like turning inward and, looking inside for an answer. And I thought, well, this was okay. It didn't really feel like a great message, right? It wasn't anything that was like earth shattering. So I kind of was like, okay, I'm not sure that that's the message. So I'm going to reshuffle the cards again. And I'm shuffling the cards and I'm asking them again the same question and shuffling. And I get top card and I flip the top card over. And sure enough, it's the same card. And I could feel my spirit team kind of laughing, like, we gave you the message and you're not listening. So trust the card that you get is the card that you are meant to receive. And this is part of learning to have that trust and communication with your spirit guides, because we all have that little human voice that's going to be questioning, but look to see, does it resonate with you? Is there something in there of value or wisdom that speaks to you? And that's what you want to kind of lean into. Once you have your card, it's important to look at the card. And that's something, to be honest, that I can sometimes forget to do. That you want to look at the picture on the card, though, just taking in the energy and the frequency of it, but also looking to see if there's anything that feels symbolic to you on anything that triggers, like you might see a white dove on the card and you'll think, gosh, that reminds me of a white dove that my mom had on a blanket. And you kind of can go into a little bit of a lead from the images on the card. You might see something that really represents a certain emotion for you. So, you might see a dolphin, and dolphin really means joy for you because it's something that you've always loved, their joyful and playful nature. So sometimes even just looking at the card can give us little tidbits of information that our spirit guides are trying to lean us into. Then I usually go to the guidebook and I read the guidebook. Now, not every deck comes with a guidebook. I think the vast majority do. And I think that that's really good information. And that might surprise you that as an intuitive that I like to use a guidebook, but I do because I like to be very direct. Like, what is it you want me to know? And that can be very helpful to get that very clear guidance from the spirit guides. So you read the guidebook and then sit with it for a few moments. So you might choose to place the card like by your nightstand. You might choose to just simply leave it out on a windowsill or even just on the top of the deck and kind of sit with the energy of the card. You might choose to journal about it. Or if you're busy, you can just contemplate through your day about what does that card mean? What do you think that message meant? How does it make you feel? Oftentimes with divination cards, the thing I love about them is they make us feel really supported and guided and to be like, okay, I don't feel like I'm doing this alone. I feel like I have outside guidance coming in on this topic. And sometimes we don't have anything that's weighing on our heart. So we might just ask for a daily message. That's often what I do. Just draw a card in the morning of what would you guys like me to know today and pick the card and then kind of use that to frame how I go through my day. So I really like divination cards. I think that they are just a really wonderful tool. At the end of every session, I always tell my guides and angels, thank you. Thank you for this message because you're acknowledging that this was a communication, that you've received the message that they are trying to get through to you. And I think gratitude just helps that relationship flourish. It helps strengthen it and deepen those connections. Now, if you look in the guidebooks, they will often give different kind of card spreads that you can use. So sometimes we're in a rush, we just want one card. And sometimes we want something that's a little bit more detailed. So I've seen ones that will say you can pull cards to represent a certain issue. And then you pull 3 cards. One's for the past, one's for the present around this issue, and one is for the future. Or it might be a card around what the problem is for the first card, what the current issue is that you're struggling with at the current moment, and then how to resolve it. So, and then one of my favorite card spreads to do is where you do a card spread that you choose different cards representing messages from all the teams. So you draw a card for your higher self. You draw a card from your guides and angels. You draw a card for the earth, a card from your ancestors, and a card from your future self. And what I love about that particular spread is how much information you get and how much love and support you get. And you'll be surprised at the differences between the different messages, depending on whether it's from your ancestors or whether it's from your angels and guides and helpers. So that's a wonderful tool to use when we're really feeling stuck and saying, gosh, I really need to feel some support here around a certain issue. So things to keep in mind with divination cards. I think the more you use them, the more you kind of become in tune with that particular deck. So it is important, I would suggest, to use this tool at least once a week. It might be a Sunday morning ritual that you have with a cup of cacao or ceremonial tea. Like, create a space that feels fun to you. Maybe you take it outside on your patio and you sit outside in the morning sun and drink your cup of coffee and pull a card and sit and contemplate. It's all about the connections. We often want to connect in with our spirit guides, and yet people sometimes forget that that's an effort. It's a relationship that you have to cultivate, just like any other relationship that we have. Yes, they're always willing to help. Yes, they are always trying to talk with us. But if you're looking to really deepen that relationship, then this is a way to take steps to do that by sitting in silence and contemplating and taking the time to not only check in with yourself, but to check in with them as well. What is it they really are trying to draw your attention to? Because they often are trying to show us ways that we can heal, messages that they would like us to receive, direction, and of course, support, which is just such a wonderful gift, right? Now, I have heard a couple different things about cards in terms of, do we allow someone else to use our cards? And if I'm in a session with the client, frankly, I'll use my best judgment. If I've had a great session with this client and I feel a close connection with them and they have a good energy, then I sometimes will let clients hold the cards. If it's someone that I have just met and I don't really know them, I'm a little bit more leery about letting someone just handle the card. So I might draw a card for them. I kind of check in and ask, like, should I draw the card? Should the client draw the card? I typically don't let like just friends or anyone just pull cards because they're my cards and I want to keep them in my energy. So I would suggest you use your best judgment. I know some people, it doesn't bother them at all. They'll let anybody, handle their cards. I always lean a little bit more into how can I best be respectful of this as a divination tool and not just a simple card deck that I would have in my home, if that makes sense. So I thought to end this episode, we would do a card pull. So the cards that I chose, if I can get this open here, are cards, the first deck that I ever bought, and it is Messages from Your Animal Spirit Guides, and it is by Stephen Farmer. And I got this deck years and years ago. My kids used to love this deck when they were little. They would actually use it as well. So I'm going to shuffle these cards. We are going to ask for a card for the group that we can. And I'm just going to, because see, I'm picky. I want to make sure that I get the right card. All right. Top card. Okay. The card we got is Camel. So it says, trust that you have the resources to get through the challenges before you. Well, now that is a really great card. So I want to look at the card. It's a picture of a camel with a blue background. I like the message on it. That already speaks to me. I don't know if it speaks to you. That is something that would be really helpful for me to keep in mind. So trust that you have the resources to get through the challenges before you. And then I'm going to go into the book and look and see what it says. So this can give you some more information. It says, sometimes it feels like you're journeying across a vast, lifeless desert that stretches beyond the horizon with no end in sight. Traipsing along this seemingly barren landscape before you, you thirst for comfort and solace during times that can most readily be satisfied by looking to your inner resources. All the experiences you've had in your lifetime, the challenges you've successfully faced, and the wealth of knowledge that you've accumulated can be called on not only to cope with any type of adversity that presents itself, but to help you move forward with courage and determination. First, identify where you want to go, and then proceed slowly and steadily and deliberately towards your objective. As you move along, cast away your fears, doubts, and hesitations whenever they arise, letting the four winds lift them up to the sun to be burned away. Ease your mind and heart and know that all is well and that you're protected at all times. Call upon those helping spirits who have assisted you up until this point in your journey. You have what it takes and you will get through this. Well, that is a really great message. It also says the associations with this card in camel energy is resourcefulness, determination, steadiness, fortitude, endurance, stamina, focus, optimism, containment, centeredness, equality, justice, strength, survival, positivity, and accomplishment. So thank you for joining me today. I hope this was helpful. If you have any specific questions about divination cards that you would like me to dive in a future episode, shoot me an email at gina@thekarunalife.com and I will be happy to answer them. Have a great rest of your day.